welcome to Sports Time with Chris. Today, I will be talking about the 49ers loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, and that is, it's going to be a good chunk of the episode, but honestly, most of this episode is going to be a Kyle Shanahan rant. It goes on for probably way too long. I will say that this is a pretty down, depressing, discouraging, disappointing, but honest episode. So if you're a 49ers fan, then stay tuned and we'll commiserate together. But yeah, I'll be breaking down my thoughts on the 49ers offensive performance, defensive performance, Brock Purdy's performance against the Chiefs, and then I go on a rant for a while about Kyle Shanahan and why I think this could be the last of Kyle Shanahan in the San Francisco era. So yeah, let's jump right into it. The 49ers lost to the Kansas City Chiefs 28-18. This was an embarrassing and underwhelming performance by the team as a whole. They didn't look like they belonged on the same field with the Chiefs. I predicted a 49ers loss, but I wanted to see this team at least compete and make it a close game. Even though it was 14-12 at halftime, this game never really felt close. The defense outplayed the offense, forcing 2 Mahomes turnovers, but the offense could not capitalize. Purdy played bad with 3 critical interceptions. Special teams play is way too inconsistent, and they need to find a new special teams coordinator. Kyle Shanahan did not have this team prepared at all, and he cannot beat Steve Spagnuolo. The 49ers have to win next week against Dallas, and they have to hope and pray that they can make the playoffs this season. And even if they do accomplish that, they better hope and pray they can make it through the playoffs. And if they miraculously make it to the Super Bowl, they better sell their souls so that they don't play Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid again, or Steve Spagnuolo, because they will lose every single time. So let's start breaking this down by the worst unit in this game, which was the offense. Obviously, there were 3 interceptions by Brock Purdy, and we're going to do a separate analysis of Brock here in just a moment. So let's focus on what else this offense did. Obviously, there was the big injury to Brandon Ayuk, which I haven't seen any updates on that yet. They are greatly going to miss Ayuk if he is out for the season with what appears to be a torn ACL. He was twisted up pretty weird. It was one of those situations where it's like, okay, this is either a torn ACL or a really bad hyperextended knee. So obviously hoping the best for Ayuk. And Debo also did not play in this game because he was apparently too sick to play. He was seen wearing an oxygen mask and I guess didn't look very good. I would have preferred if he was sick to stay away from the team and maybe if it's infectious, not infect the rest of the team, because that would really suck. And this team really can't afford to be down anyone. If Debo says he wasn't good to go, then maybe he wasn't. But there have also been rumors that Debo is a potential candidate to be traded out of San Francisco around the trade deadline. And the conspiracy theorist in me thinks that might have something to do with why he didn't play. Now, we don't know if that's true or not. It's all speculation, it's all rumors, and maybe he really was just too sick to play. But just an interesting that was something I was not expecting. I really thought Debo was going to be used a little bit in this game, maybe not quite to the extent that he was in the Super Bowl, but obviously Debo is one of those weapons on this offense that is going to get the ball, and when you're down Juwan Jennings and Christian McCaffrey, Debo is usually one of the go-to guys. So anyway, besides that, the offense they did not look like they belonged on the same field as the Chiefs. Right from the get-go, they went 3 and out, it's the offensive line, man, especially against the Chiefs, you cannot have these stupid penalties, holding penalties, false starts, things like that. Because all of a sudden you get into 2nd and long, and then 3rd and long is where Steve Spagnuolo shines. And I talked about that in my preview of this game. Steve Spagnuolo in 3rd and long, he knows exactly what to do, especially against a Kyle Shanahan offense. He will bring more defenders than you can block, have his defensive backs play at right at the sticks so that they just have to run up and make a tackle. And that's exactly what they did. I think, what was that? Was that the first drive where Kyle Juszczyk got that 14-yard gain? And it's a 14-yard rush, sure, but on 3rd and 20 or whatever it was, it's not going to be enough. And guys just have to come up and make a tackle. The running running game could not get going, partially because of those holding penalties. They did have some good runs, and it was so hit and miss. It was like one play they would get stuffed at the line of scrimmage, the next play they would get stuffed, and then they'd go to the next drive and then have a 10-yard gain. And so it was really disheartening and disappointing to see that Kyle Shanahan could not adapt throughout the game. He could not make adjustments to help the running game get going. There was no creativity, no end arounds, no misdirections, because the straight up running at the Chiefs thing was not working. And so when that doesn't work and the passing game is not working, then get creative. We saw Andy Reid. Mahomes is down pretty much all his weapons. Juju Smith-Schuster got hurt during the game. So they had Xavier Worthy. Who's that other receiver they have? I guess Justin Watson didn't do too much, but Noah Gray was killing this defense for the Chiefs. Anyway, we're talking about the 49ers offense. There was no creativity. There was no adjusting by Kyle. There was just nothing offensively that impressed me at all. Partially due to Brock. He did have a few good throws, but I don't think Kyle has any answers for Steve Spagnuolo's defense. Every time they've played, this offense has struggled more than they've struggled against any other opponent. I mean, Jordan Mason did look he looked good. I mean, he still averaged 4.1 yards carry, and that was despite having hardly any rushing room. When he did have rushing room, he was able to make some good plays. It just seems like Shanahan doesn't have he has like no quick passing game. There's just nothing where you take the ball, where snap the ball to Brock, takes a step, throws it right away. There's like nothing like that in this offense that I've seen, except the occasional screen pass or, swing out. There's just nothing really quick. It seems like all of the passing plays are long developing, and Brock's got to get through his reads, and I think that's how you beat a team like this. Where I was watching the Jets game last night against the Steelers, and obviously Aaron Rodgers has taken a step back, but there were so many plays in that game where it's literally Aaron taking the snap, throwing a quick hitch route to Devontae Adams, or just taking just one step throw, and I haven't really seen that from a Kyle Shanahan offense, at least not recently. And there has just been no improvement in the drop back passing game by Kyle Shanahan in his whole time here in San Francisco. I think that's something you've got to do against a team like Kansas City, where you can't just have these long developing routes. You have to wait for the windows to open. Sometimes you got to go out there and just create your own windows. If there's space, you take the space. I mean, George Kittle had a good game. It was nice to see him get involved. Who knows if that was because Brandon Ayuk and Debo being out and Juwan Jennings, but good things happen when you get George Kittle involved. And so you've got to get him involved. And maybe you've got to make room for other tight ends on your roster who can go out and make difference makers. Because look, Travis Kelce is one of the a top 3 tight end in this league. But Noah Gray is the one that was killing the 49ers yesterday. Like, why don't the 49ers ever place any stock in their tight end too? I've been saying this for years. Get rid of Juszczyk. Go get a true tight end too. Not some gadget guy, not some utility fullback who is the highest paid in the league. Go out and get a tight end too who can be on the opposite side of Kittle. Tight ends are such cheat codes in the NFL because they are mismatches physically usually, and if you can find a fast tight end, that makes a big difference as well. So I think for this team going forward, that might be an area that Eric Sabra has looked good when he has opportunities, and maybe he is just being underutilized, which would not surprise me with Kyle Shanahan, or maybe he's not that good. But if he's not that good, and maybe that's a spot the 49ers can look at during the trade, before the trade deadline, go out and get a second tight end besides George Kittle. I think there's been way too much money put into the wide receiver room at this point, and Ayuk's going to be out for the season. Debo and Jennings should hopefully be back next week. Cowing needs to be more involved. He looked good. He probably would have scored a touchdown if Purdy had let him a little bit more on that deep pass. But Cowing, what was that game? He looked really solid. Was that the first or second game? He's a guy. Kyle Shanahan also needs to play his rookies. I'm going to go on a whole rant about Kyle Shanahan here in a minute, but Cowing and Pearsall both look good. To me, man, I really have to give props to Ricky Ricky Pearsall. Obviously, it was his first game back. Well, his first NFL game. I don't know why I keep saying he's back because he's never played before, but Ricky Pearsall played in his first NFL game 50 days after being shot. That alone is an incredible accomplishment. And, he missed most of the preseason, most of training camp, and obviously the first 6 weeks of the NFL season. And so he came into this game, probably not in the best football shape, still pretty good. And he was probably expecting to play 15, 20 snaps, get his feet wet, go out there and maybe get a catch or two, which, he did. And the crowd was electric. I think that was that during the 2-minute drill? He got that first catch, which was, bad timing because the crowd got loud right when the 49ers needed to hear what the play call was and they were trying to hurry, but that was really awesome to see. And then he ended up having to play the whole game because obviously Debo and Ayuk were out. So major props to him going out and stepping up. He didn't have a huge stat line, but I thought he looked pretty decent. There were a few plays where he was obviously not on the same page as Brock. Their timing was a little bit off and maybe he, didn't have the depth that he needed or the angle. And so Brock missed him, but I thought overall he looked good. And that's something that, Brock and him will continue to build chemistry. And with Ayuk out, he's probably going to have to step up a little bit more. But he looked solid. I think he showed some promise. I think between him and Cowing, I still have faith in this passing attack. Well, I have faith in the receiver room, not necessarily the passing attack, but in the receiver room. So yeah, the offensive line, they actually didn't play that bad in the passing game, at least. It seemed like Brock overall had time. He had some pressure. There were a few plays where I held my breath because I thought he was going to get hit, possibly break his arm again. But overall, they did pretty decent, especially against Chris Jones. What was that one play where George Karlaftis got past? Well, first of all, they tried blocking George Karlaftis with the second tight end. They had two guys on him. I can't remember if they pulled someone over to block Karlaftis and the backup tight end. But man, why is Shanahan obsessed with blocking these high octane edge rushers with second tight ends? I don't understand it. It is stupid in my opinion. And look, when we're going back to the passing game for just a minute, or actually we're going back to Brandon Ayuk and Debo. When those guys go out and you want to establish the run, what's stopping Shanahan from bringing in another lineman? Okay, maybe that's dumb. I don't know. I'm just trying to think outside the box because the Chiefs were loading the box, man. Every time I looked, they were loading up the box. And the thing that boggles my mind, and there are people out there who maybe understand football a little bit better. I feel like I have a pretty high understanding of football in general. But what is the point of condensing your formations and playing very tight with your receivers, your tight ends, just having everyone in tight because that invites the defense to also play tight. And then you basically load the box on yourself so that you can't have a running game. Like that just does not make sense to me, and I don't know why Shanahan continues to do that. Like I've been saying, you can spread the offense out a little, spread the defense out a little to help out your running game, and we just haven't seen Shanahan do that, and it's just annoying. And I'm getting sick of it. So yeah, we'll see if this offense can improve at all. We'll talk about the upcoming game later. So let's get on to the defense. Defensively, I cannot put this game on the defense. I thought the defense played really well, actually. Obviously, in the second half, we saw Kareem Hunt go back to his first few years in the league where he just could not be stopped. For some reason, this defense could not tackle Kareem Hunt. I mentioned that one of the keys to this game was tackling, and in the second half, they could not tackle. And of course, there's that scramble to Patrick Mahomes. And look, there is a difference between playing dirty and towing the line. And on that Patrick Mahomes play where he got around Fred Warner and it looked like he was going to go out of bounds, and then he ran down the sideline for like 30 something yards. On that play, I really wanted to see Malik Mustafa. I think Mustafa was the one at the end that got him out of bounds, but I really would have liked to see Mustafa. Hey, like if you're not going to run out of bounds, I'm going to hit you, and I'm going to hit you really hard. Like you've got to do that. You've got to set that tone where, hey, Mahomes, you better run out of bounds, otherwise we're going to whack you. And I would have loved to see Mustafa hit him on that play, or on the goal line where he let up and Mahomes ended up running him over. I feel bad for Mustafa on that one because I think he was letting up since he knew Mahomes was getting into the end zone. But look, if it's close, if it's on the line, then I think you absolutely You absolutely have to set that tone and be physical. And no, I don't think it's dirty. I think it's football. And if you get penalized for it, then at least Mahomes knows, yeah, you need to go out of bounds. Otherwise, we're gonna whack you. And that's part of what they're missing with Dre Greenlaw. I thought Mustafa brought it a little bit in this game. He was the only 49er that I felt was making sure tackles, and he was hitting hard. He knocked Xavier Worthy out of the game for a little bit, and he had some good hits on Kareem Hunt as well. But I said this in the preview as well. Mahomes hasn't played his best football against the 49ers. He has shown that he's actually struggled a little bit. Now, he made the plays when he needed them, especially with his feet, but he threw 2 picks, one to Demo and then one to Kalia Davis, who tipped it to himself, and that was a really cool play by him. But the offense couldn't capitalize on those mistakes. And, the defense held them to 14 points in the first half. And then the special teams, of course, gave up a really long return because Ronnie Bell took a horrible angle, and for some reason he was running across the field, and instead of containing Mecole Hardman. Gosh, the special teams, man. We'll get into that in a little bit, but special teams are a joke. And the defense, I think part of why they struggled in the second half was because they were getting tired. They were on the field for a long time, especially in the first half because of the offense. So you can't blame them too much for they only gave up 14 only 14 points in the second half. That is quite a bit, but they were just worn out, man. The secondary played really well, in my opinion. They made some good stops. Trevarius Ward had a good breakup on Travis Kelce. I mean, overall, they played well. I really thought Xavier Worthy was going to be able to take the top off. To be fair, he did. He did beat the secondary, and Mahomes just overthrew him, which is, it's wild that Patrick Mahomes has such a strong arm that he can overthrow a fast guy like Xavier Worthy. That was pretty wild to watch. Patrick Mahomes overthrow Worthy. But besides that, I thought the secondary played well. I mean, the guy that was killing them was Noah Gray all game. Noah Gray was the one who they went to probably because they were focused on shutting down Travis Kelce. But this game isn't on the defense. They forced 2 Patrick Mahomes turnovers, and the offense put up 18 points. So. Yeah, this game is a little bit different because the Chiefs do like running a lot out of 2 tight end sets. So there weren't a lot of situations where you're going to have a nickel cornerback out there on the field. So I didn't notice too much of who was in the nickel, whether it was Renardo Green or Isaac Yiadom. Yeah, that's something I didn't really notice too much. But yeah, I mean, Mustafa was probably the best player on the defense yesterday. And this defensive line is just, they're not going to get it done. I think they had 2 sacks total on Patrick Mahomes early on, and then they couldn't get anything done. And then when the Chiefs wanted to run the ball in the second half, they absolutely ran the ball. So yeah, this game wasn't on the defense. Special teams, I think there's only one answer, and they need to get a new special teams coordinator. What's his name? Dan Schneider? No, that's not it. What's Brian Schneider? Brian Schneider needs to go. This special teams unit is just way too up and down, and it's part of the reason why this game got away from the 49ers. Now, they stopped the fake punt, but also they gave up a huge punt return that set up the Chiefs to score, and it's just way too up and down, way too inconsistent to be sustainable. And if this season comes down to a special teams play, I don't have confidence at all. I mean, Anders Carlson, he made that really, what was it, a 55-yard field goal right down the middle, and then he missed. This is what I don't understand either. Why Shanahan wouldn't want to tie it up, make it 14-14. He should have gone for it there in the first place. That's what I said. Like, you got to go for it, tie the game up, and then you're not behind. You can play the matching game if you have to do that. You'd rather play ahead, of course, instead of trying to match whatever the Kansas City Chiefs are doing. Instead, they just go for the field goal or for the extra point, and Carlson missed it. It's some of those decisions just baffle me with Shanahan. Against this Chiefs team, you've got to be the aggressor, and Shanahan was not that in this game. So my takeaway is get rid of Schneider. I don't know who you can bring in, but at this point, special teams teams is a conversation every week, and it really shouldn't be. It should be something that every once in a while, you're going to have a good special teams play and a bad special teams play, and it's just way too up and down to be sustainable, and it could end up costing the 49ers their season. Brock Purdy was extremely disappointing in this game, and I don't know what to make of Brock, because he plays really, really well in almost every game except these big ones. And rewinding a little bit, he played really well last season in the second half against Detroit in the NFC Championship game. He overall played well in the Super Bowl against this Chiefs team, and in this game he did not look confident. He looked scared out there, and I don't know if it was the scheme, if it was what the Chiefs were showing pre-snap. Maybe it's Kyle Shanahan not uplifting his quarterback and boosting his confidence, or I don't know what it was, but Brock did not look confident at all in this game. Even on his good plays, he did not look like the best version of himself. There was that deep shot to George Kittle right before the half where Brock could have led him. He could have stepped up into his throw and led Kittle, and that probably would have ended up being a touchdown. There was that throw to Cowing where he had to turn around and fall down to catch the ball, and instead of being led up the field where Brock could have put it on him and scored a touchdown. That first interception I actually missed. I was at my parents' house watching the game, and usually I'll miss if there's a first play or two, I'll miss that. I'll go do whatever, fill up my water, go say hi to people, get some food, whatever it is. So I don't expect a turnover on the first play or two of a drive, and then I just hear the commentator say Brock threw a pick, and I actually didn't get to watch it until this morning. And man, it was worse than I thought. My dad and brother basically told me Brock tried to throw it to Kittle, who was like in quadruple coverage. There was no one really around, and I was like, oh, that sounds bad. Like, was there any chance Kittle was open? And there was like no chance Kittle was open. I have no idea what Brock was doing on that one. It was just I don't know. That's an inexcusable throw by Brock. If no one is open and George Kittle is quadruple covered, you've got to throw that ball away. I think the second pick was the one to Ronnie Bell. I thought it was the wrong route, but it turns out it was the correct route by Ronnie Bell, which was actually a really good route by him. That's the thing about Ronnie Bell, is his hands have been his issue, but he is also a really good technical route runner, and he tends to get open. And Brock just overthrew him, and that was a bad pick. And then that last interception in the end zone was eerily similar to an interception that Jimmy Garoppolo threw against the Chiefs. Was that 3 years ago, where there was no one really open? He tries to force a pass and goes right to the defender. I think it's partially due to the lack of creativity by Kyle Shanahan. It was just a bad play call, but Brock cannot make that throw either. He cannot make any of these throws, and he looked off all day. This isn't the first time we've said this season. I've been saying that I think Brock is the guy for the 49ers, and then he goes out and does just these weird things that Brock does. He was throwing the ball at his own teammate's helmet at one point. That was very similar to that interception he threw. Was that against the Cardinals, where he tried to step up and get it to George Kittle, and he threw it like right where the defender could catch it? And to me, it just that seems like a lack of confidence. And I don't think Kyle Shanahan helps with Brock's confidence at all. He doesn't empower Brock. He doesn't call plays that help Brock out. Kind of just lets Brock go out there on an island and hope that his receivers can get open and the offensive line holds up. So yeah, extremely disappointing game by Brock. And we've seen a few of these bad games from him until he threw that third interception. He was playing about the same as Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes didn't have his weapons either, besides Kelsey, and Brock had George. So up until that third interception, he was playing comparably to Patrick Mahomes, but he also didn't make the plays that mattered the most, like Mahomes did. He didn't have the ice in his veins or that clutch gene that Patrick Mahomes does, whether it's passing the ball or just making a play. We didn't see that from Brock yesterday. So that was extremely disappointing, and hopefully he can clean it up against Dallas, and I guess we'll see what happens from there. This has become a theme way too common. It's not surprising, but it is more common than I would like it to be. And I just need to talk about Kyle Shanahan. There was a thought that I had last season when the 49ers lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Now, it was a fast thought and a little bit of an overreaction. So I didn't, after after I thought about it, I was like, you know what, maybe this isn't the answer. But my thought was that after that loss to the Chiefs, maybe it's time to move on from Kyle Shanahan. Now, I'm sure that seems pretty premature, especially considering they had just played in the Super Bowl and, they were a few plays away from winning that Super Bowl. But what really triggered this thought for me was that that 49ers team was the best team in football. Hands down, the best team in football. We saw what they did to Philadelphia and Dallas. Now, those two teams aren't the top tier teams in the NFL. At least they weren't last season. They laid an egg against the Ravens, sure, but they managed to pull out two big wins in the NFC in the playoffs. But I was just thinking, how many offensive coordinators in the NFL, if you gave them that 49ers offense last season, if you handed them Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, Jennings, Kittle, Juszczyk even, the offensive line is but if you handed another offensive coordinator those guys and told them to go out and put up the best offense they could, what would those guys do with all those weapons? Would they be even more successful than what Shanahan has been able to do with those weapons? And I think a lot of them would be. Well, last season, the Niners, they put up 30 points a game? And that's good. That's really good. It was they were one of the highest scoring offenses in the league, if not the highest scoring offense in the league. But I really thought they could have been up there with the Peyton Manning record-breaking offense. Now, Brock Purdy is not Peyton Manning. I don't think he would have thrown for that many yards and touchdowns, but I think they would have figured out how to score a lot more points, and they would have completely stomped on that Packers team and, maybe not struggled against the Detroit. They, would have had a little bit more resistance against Detroit, but I think they could have easily dominated in that Super Bowl. And so that was my thought was, maybe not fire Kyle Shanahan, but maybe bring in another offensive coordinator so that Shanahan's the head coach. They could still run his system, but also be more creative on the offensive side of the ball. And this season has confirmed those things to me. I think Shanahan has not adapted. He thinks his scheme is supreme. And even with all these weapons, this offense has not looked very good at all. They've not put up the number of points they should be able to. They struggle in the red zone. There's no creativity by Kyle Shanahan and his play calling anymore. And for me, I'm just it sucks because this really feels like this season was the last chance for this specific group of players to win a Super Bowl. And last season seemed like their best chance at winning a Super Bowl, and they could not do it. With the best team in football, Kyle Shanahan could not win a Super Bowl. So I doubted him, and I have continued to doubt him. And after that game, I was like, it's a little premature. Maybe they could bring in an offensive coordinator. I'm sure they wouldn't because Shanahan doesn't want that. And now I kind of wish they would have. I really wonder what this offense would look like this season with a different offensive coordinator, because they have been extremely disappointing. They have not been able to beat these good defenses and even bad defenses occasionally, the Rams and Cardinals. And so for me, this unfortunately feels like it should be the last season for Kyle Shanahan. And it also feels like it's a year too late. This roster is going to look completely different next season. And I think if they don't win a Super Bowl this year, which I don't think they will, they should move on from Kyle Shanahan. And so the new coach will have to rebuild essentially with the roster. And that is going to be a little bit of I think it's going to be tough for the next coach to get back to the 49ers winning ways. So with this upcoming game against Dallas, the 49ers should win this game. Dallas has looked bad this season. I wouldn't say the 49ers have looked bad. They've had really bad moments. They played bad games, but I wouldn't say they've looked bad, if that makes sense. Dallas has legitimately looked bad. And so they should win this game against the Cowboys. They better win this game against the Cowboys. And if they don't, then I would absolutely fire Kyle Shanahan on the spot, because there's no reason they should lose to the Cowboys. There's no reason they should have lost to the Rams or Cardinals either. But a win against the Cowboys puts you at 4-4 right before the bye week. Maybe there you can regroup. There's a chance they get Dre Greenlaw back. There's a chance they get McCaffrey back. And then maybe you go for a run to end going into November and December, where football matters the most. Sure. But I think this is it. For me, I highly doubt the 49ers win a Super Bowl this season. I predicted they would lose in the second round of the playoffs in my prediction show for the season. And if they miraculously win a Super Bowl, then sure, I'll give him his flowers. I'll give him a chance to continue to be the team's head coach. And if not, then I think it's time to move on. I think it absolutely is time time to move on. I mean, Shanahan has not been able to beat Steve Spagnuolo. That Chiefs team has figured out how to win close games, how to win grindy games, playoff games, Super Bowls. And so I don't think if the 49ers play in the Chiefs in any future Super Bowls, I don't think they will ever win, to be frank. Especially, well, if Steve Spagnuolo is the defensive coordinator over there. Now, Andy Reid has been good too, but his offenses haven't been that great against the Niners defenses. He's one of the best, well, he is the best head coach in the NFL right now. He's an offensive genius, which we need to stop calling Kyle Shanahan at this point. But his offenses is still, they've done just enough to beat the 49ers and the 49ers defenses. So, take from that what you will. But Steve Spagnuolo will have Shanahan's number for as long as Shanahan is the head coach of this team. I would like to see another guy come in who can be much more creative, can utilize all his weapons, isn't afraid to play rookies. And that's the thing, is Shanahan he does not like playing rookies for whatever reason. And now BA and Debo were out last game and they had to rely on rookies. It would have been nice Pearsall had just come back, but if Cowing had gotten more opportunities, throughout the season, instead of just being thrust into the wide receiver 1 and 2 roles. Shanahan has not invested in the offensive line besides Dominic Pooney, who, they got him, third round of the draft. For some reason, they just don't like to improve the offensive line. It's like Shanahan doesn't have great decision making in game with personnel, and maybe he can prove me wrong. Maybe they can beat the Cowboys, go into the bye week and turn the season around and go for a run, but I don't know. Shanahan has not proved that he can get it done. He's known for blowing fourth quarter leads. He's known for giving up 10-point leads, and his system is all that matters to him, and his system doesn't improve. He hasn't improved the passing attack. There's no quick passing game. The drop back passing game is high schoolish. There's nothing that highlights his key players. That's what Andy Reid does. He knows his players' strengths. He knows what they're good at, and he is good at getting them into situations where they can thrive. Yesterday, the Niners shut down Travis Kelce. Xavier Worthy, he's got some room to improve, but I thought he was going to play more of a role in this Chiefs offense. But since those guys were taken out, Noah Gray, Andy Reid knew, hey, Noah Gray. I actually almost put money down on Noah Gray touchdown, but he only has 6 career touchdowns, so I should have put it on his receiving yards or something, but yeah, Noah Gray lit up that Niners defense, and Andy Reid knows what his players' strengths are. He plays to them. He does just enough to win football games, and that's how you win Super Bowls, in my opinion. You figure out how to win these close, gritty games when you're not playing your best football, and they've continually done that year after year after year. Shanahan has not. Shanahan has to play with the lead. Shanahan has to get up and be up multiple scores and rely on his defense, and then the defense plays soft and gives up lead. It's almost to the point where it's like insanity. The literally definition of insanity, where, what is it? You do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting to get a different result every time. I don't know if that's a true definition of insanity. I've heard that used to describe insanity. But yeah, it's been disheartening under the Shanahan era. Last year was a great opportunity, and this season is probably the last good chance the Niners have at going to Super Bowl, and they have not lived up to expectation at all. I think it's a year too late. Maybe they should have moved on from Shanahan after that Super Bowl. So I don't know. I keep, every year after year, I hold out hope that Kyle Shanahan will improve a little bit more. He will make adjustments to his scheme. He'll improve on certain things. He'll take responsibility, like Brock Purdy does, for things that happen out there on the field. He doesn't. Plays his favorite receivers. He plays favorites. He's just been really disappointing, and we need to stop calling Kyle Shanahan is not a genius. He's not. He adapted his dad's scheme. His dad, maybe not a genius, but maybe not revolutionized. He developed the scheme that has been very successful for years and years. Shanahan took that scheme, made some tweaks to it, but overall hasn't improved it, and it's been sad. And it makes you wonder what these last few seasons could have looked like with a different offensive coordinator, because I'm just kind of done with Shanahan. And this Chiefs game did not look like he had his team prepared at all. He couldn't adapt against Steve Spagnuolo again. There was just the same old from Kyle Shanahan. So for me, it's too late to move on from him. I mean, I think you should do it, depending on if you're going to make the playoffs or not. Obviously, if he gets them into the playoffs, then he deserves that last opportunity. But, the moment the Niners don't qualify for the playoffs or are bounced, they should move on from Shanahan. Go get a guy like Ben Johnson. Go get someone who can be creative with his offense and actually use his weapons and empower his quarterback. So, yeah, that's my probably disheartening and depressing rant about Kyle Shanahan. Seems like I've gone on way too many of these rants this season already, but I, for years, have criticized Shanahan, even back with Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, we've seen what happened to Jimmy after he moved on from the 49ers, and maybe he's not the best quarterback, but I also, here's the thing about Kyle Shanahan. He does elevate his quarterbacks in a certain sense, with the play action passing game, and he does do a good job with certain guys getting them open and giving the quarterback open looks. But I also think he kills quarterbacks. It's like he can make quarterbacks play well under his scheme, but the moment they go to a true offense with true passing game, they suffer. And I truly believe that happened with Jimmy G a little bit. I thought he was going to be a really good quarterback, and Shanahan elevated him a little bit, but he also held him back. And I truly believe that with Garoppolo. And unfortunately, I think it might be happening a little bit with Brock as well. And that's not saying Brock isn't a good quarterback. It's saying that Shanahan was able to help Brock get to a good tier of quarterback, but he's held him back from becoming a great quarterback. And I think that will continue to happen with Shanahan. So, yeah, anyway, I'm going to move on. Yeah, I think that's going to wrap up this episode. I've been recording for way too long at this point, and that rant about Shanahan, I have no idea how long that is, but it's also probably way too long. This episode is getting very, very long and probably disheartening and depressing, and time to, I guess, move forward and look forward to Dallas, which I am actually really excited about. As soon as the schedule was announced for this season, I circled that Dallas game on my calendar because it's a Sunday night football game. It's the easiest for my wife and I to host for my family because I've been so excited to host a game for my family. We did it last year for the Cowboys game. The year before, I think we did against the Broncos when they lost. Gosh, after that game, I was like, man, I'm never going to host a football game ever again, but I'm really excited. I think I've been having a hard time deciding what I'm going to make for dinner that night because I have so many options that I want to do, and we haven't hosted too many events this year, as many as I would have liked. It's just been way too busy, and Sunday Night Football is a great opportunity for us to do that, and so I'm really, really excited for it, looking forward to it, and I can't decide between, the thing I do best is carne asada tacos. In my opinion, that's my go-to. It's something I can do very well every time, and we've done it for the last few years, but I also want to switch it up and do something different. Like, should I do my chili, which I've only made for myself? But it is really good, and I really want to share that with my family. But also, we've never done chili before, and it is chili season, but also I want wings. Wings are football food, and maybe I can do a combination of everything. Who knows? We'll see what I end up doing, but I've been debating between wings, chili, burgers, tacos, and yeah, that's basically what I've been debating between, and I'll figure it out here soon. I think I know what I'm gonna do. There were a few signs yesterday during the 49ers game that I actually made me think that that's what I should do for dinner, so I'll let you guys know on the Cowboys preview show what I'm gonna end up doing for that game. But yeah, I mean, it's the Cowboys. It's a game that I am excited about, but I wish I was a little bit more excited about. Instead, the Niners have a chance to go back to 500 and get a win right before the trade deadline and the bye week. So thank you for tuning in as always. I'm sorry this has been a depressing, down episode. I just I've had a lot of frustrations with Kyle Shanahan, and that game yesterday really I think it just pushed me over the edge with Shanahan even more than the Super Bowl loss last year. So anyway, thank you for listening to Sports Time with Chris. I appreciate every single one of you who took the time to listen today. Even if you're still here, then thank you. I appreciate you even more. I know this is not the most fun episode ever. Stay tuned for the 49ers versus Cowboys preview on Saturday. Let's see. Saturday. We will see how Saturday works. I've got a very, very busy day on Saturday. I'm actually working from like 6 to 6. Very long day. So I'm not sure exactly when I'll be releasing the Saturday episode. I may even release it early. We'll see. We'll see how things go. But stay tuned for that Cowboys preview. And as always, this has been Sports Time with Chris.